Hi, I'm Esther.
And I'm Sean.
I write about AI news here at Tech Target.
And I edit Esther's stories.
We're here to talk to tech experts about everything AI, from open and closed models to AI agents and who's ahead in the generative AI race.
And even the elusive AGI.
We've got it covered, right, Sean?
Yep, we've got it covered. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Targeting AI podcast from Tech Target Editorial. Our guest for today's episode is Ben Kuss, a veteran tech executive and since 2020, the Chief Technology Officer of Box, the cloud-based content management vendor. Ben has been with Box since 2015. Listeners and viewers should know that Tech Target is a longtime Box customer. Great to have you with us today, Ben.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Okay.
Yeah, we're pretty excited to have you on. So what is enterprise AI to Box now? How do you define it? And to what extent is your focus beyond your core mission of serving as a provider of what you call the intelligent content cloud?
I think so for me in this world that we're in, where like suddenly like generative AI became like a really sort of critical concept across the board. For us, this was kind of amazing. So our journey was we've been doing AI on content for a long time, right? So when I say content, we typically use this word like unstructured data. So there's the world of structured data, which is like in a database, and there's unstructured data, which is like we as humans look at and use. So like a PowerPoint or document or PDF or even Excel file. These are all kind of like structured or semi-structured data. And we used to be this world where like this whole idea of big data and this whole idea of like data revolution and analytics, it used to be sort of confined to the structured data world. And so as we've been doing AI for many years, it used to be our goal was to try to get some of the sort of subset of unstructured content, like you have a contract, there's some key fields in there, you want to extract them out and then put them into another data store so that you can use them. But the really cool thing that happened, and this is like we've just been really excited as this journey has kept going, is AI got to the point where the generative AI models understood content. Like legitimately, they would read the content, like by the they would nowadays they can understand images and audio and in video and so on. And this became suddenly the world was that you could have AI help you do stuff on unstructured content. Now, most of us, oh, cool, you can chat with it and it can generate things, which is very true. But then it can actually read through a lot of your material and then understand stuff for you. And so since most customers, most enterprises, they have 90% of their data is unstructured. Suddenly there's this new gold mine of the stuff that they spend all their time working on. And now AI can help. And it can help almost every employee who deals with content, which is basically everyone. And it can do a lot of really interesting things. It's almost like having a very dedicated, very intelligent person who stands next to you, ready to do what you want. And they're like, I'm going to go read that for you. I'm going to go look through that data for you. And then be able to give you these kind of interesting responses that you start to see in things like our Box AI. So for us, this whole like generative AI revolution has been this like great gift to everybody who deals with content. And so we've been really excited to see the whole thing unfold.
As you were saying, I mean, Box has been into AI for a long time, even before generative AI, but then Box co-founder and CEO Aaron Levie has a long-standing friendship with OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. And so your first entry into Gen AI was with technology from OpenAI, I believe, and then Microsoft, which is your partner, one of your partners after that. So to what extent are you and your customers going to be solely reliant on OpenAI and Microsoft for LLM and other generative AI technology? Can your customers use their other large language models with Box? Can they access others, or are they pretty much in the OpenAI Microsoft universe?
As you mentioned, Azure and OpenAI are partners of ours, and we think they have great models, but we are not at all dedicated to any one model. In fact, at Box, one of our goals is to provide to you all of the major models that you might want. And so for us, we've announced partnerships with so Azure and OpenAI have great models, especially like GPT-4o class models. They're really good. But GCP and Google has their Gemini class of models. I think right now, if you look on some leaderboards, they just happen to pull ahead in some of their latest models. And then AWS has a lot of good models, including Anthropic. They help you provide those. IBM has their Watson X models, and including supporting things like some of the open source standard models. And all of these models are they just they're interesting because if you kind of keep track of them, it's hard because they like change all the time. But you see that like the model that started this whole sort of revolution, which was the Chat GPT model, the GPT 3.5, that now is considered like a very like almost like unusable model because it's not that smart, quote unquote. And then but in the world of all these other models, almost every week or every month a new model pulls ahead as the best model that we've ever seen in the history of models. And so at Box we say if somebody wants to use the Azure model because it works well for them, or the Gemini model, or any of them, then we will support it for them because we've kind of found that their different models are good at different things. But to the point of like nobody can predict which model is going to be the best going forward, we let people have all the options, and that's an important thing for us. Is that like we're not betting on any one vendor, we're betting on all the AI models collectively to get better overall, and then you can just get better results with the kind of things that you do inside a Box.
But underlying though, the Box platform, you had your own AI that you developed, I think, before the ChatGPT. But do you not use a specific model built in for Box AI? Does it make calls on different LLMs or?
Yeah, that's the idea. Is that we have that we will utilize the best models overall, and we don't need to be the one who's building the AI in the same way we don't need to be the one who builds the underlying database or the underlying processors or all these different pieces. We believe in the idea of using the best technology available, and in this case, as you know, there's really good companies and probably billions, hundreds of billions, or trillions of dollars that go into making these really good models, and our goal is just to use the best ones, and they make them quite available for this exact purpose. So that's exactly we're not going to give you a proprietary model that would be worse than the state of the art, and so therefore we just use whatever is considered the state of the art.
How do you think the LLM wars are going to shake out for Box customers? What LLM will they be using 3 years from now, and why? Or do you think that we will be beyond LLMs at all?
Like so for me, a couple notes on this complex question. So the first is like when we were talking about LLMs, like mostly like I think many of them started as large language models, like with the like language being text. But lately they're becoming multimodal. So I think that this is one key avenue that is that the AI models that we're talking about in the future will probably not just be LLMs, but they'll be more because they can handle the different modalities, which is just a more nuanced piece of your question. But I'm under the impression that the world in the future is going to start to resemble more like coffee and less like wine. And what I mean by that is like today, if you said, hey, I had some coffee this morning, or we like, what coffee do you like, or whatever, like there's no end of a large number of coffees, but many of us go from like certain big coffee that's pretty good that some major institutions provide, like it or not, like a lot of people drink Starbucks or Pete's or these other different pieces. So there's these kind of big dominant like brands that offer you a lot of things if you want just a cup of coffee that's a pretty good cup. Now compare that to the world of wine, where if you said, hey, like what wine did you have last night, like very few people know any of these wines, right? And they just all drink different things, and there's just a very wide variety of them. So I think the future is for LLMs in this, or for AI models in this analogy, is more like coffee, in that there's a lot of specialization. There's a lot of like, some people are like, no, I like my own special one. It comes from this region. It has this kind of flavors. But most people will be using these very dominant, very good models that are available from multiple sources, and then maybe they're a little bit different, or you like one versus the other, but they're all pretty good at the highest level. So I see that like the ones I listed are the current dominant ones in my opinion. Gemini, the OpenAI family, the Anthropic family, and I think the open source Llama family is one of the best open source ones. And so those ones are the dominant ones. And then there's no end to other good models that can be specialists, but the amount of money that goes into training these big ones is so vast. And in particular, when you start to get things like bringing in data from multimodal, that I kind of see that they're all going to continue to go out ahead of the rest. because nobody's going to be able to fund it unless you're a major technology company to get the GPUs and the techniques available and the data available to make that work. Maybe a couple of those drop out and a couple new jump on, but there's the dominant few, and then a lot of other ones that are more specialist. That's kind of how I see it. And then at Box, we will support them all, because like some people will want one versus the other, including the specialist ones. And so our job will be to bring them what they need.
I have a kind of a follow up, because you're saying obviously that these, it's kind of like there are people, there, the vendors that are already proficient, efficient in LLMs are the ones that you believe will continue to be so, right? And I've heard from analysts that the idea of like we're kind of at the stage where the shiny toys are like gone, right? Now we're trying to use what we have and kind of be grounded in what we have. And a lot of enterprises are not exactly sure what to do with exactly what we have. Why do you think, or do you think that Box was able to, I guess, get with the program quickly and be able to use LLMs and generative AI technology very quickly versus others who are still finding trouble and trying to figure out what is going on?
I think the benefit that we have at Box was not only that we had kind of been paying attention to AI for a long time, but also we just have a very practical use case for something that would be called a large language model. Like it's just like a very common thing that people, even in the earliest days, they'd be like, hey, if I copy paste this, this data into ChatGPT the day it was released, it turns out it can understand and answer. And so for us, it's very natural for it to help you understand, find, extract information, gain insights to your content. And another very important conversation we haven't had about it for Box is like to be able to structure some of the unstructured data, like have it go through and extract those key fields. So we've been doing that for a long time. And so we've just been looking for better and better technology. And it turns out that the AI models that in generative AI just do this really well. So we were just plugged it in and happily kept going with the letting the technology get better as we could use it more and more. And for us, we have the kind of use cases where like the better the models are, the better the results are, which not everybody has. Some people have like different use cases where like I just need good enough, or like once it's okay, then I'm good with it. We, I think, are happy with the idea that as these all get better, people can just use it more and more, especially in the enterprise. And from my view, I don't think most enterprises have fully begun to get all the value out of AI, even though it's been 2 years almost exactly since ChatGPT was released. I think a lot of companies are still getting used to where it can be very helpful for them in ways that matter. And so this is, I think, the one of the keys is that if you go back in time a little bit and think about like mobile devices, right? We all have mobile devices. They matter, especially even in business settings. Like companies that use mobile are probably a lot more efficient than companies that don't, or the internet, or like cloud overall. Like all these are major trends that have been around for a long time, and companies clearly are dramatically more productive and better off than companies that ignored those trends. And to the point, I don't know which companies would ever like just completely ignore those. They're just so useful. And I think AI is like that. But remember, it took years after they were introduced for people to get the full value out of them. So I believe we're on a trend right now where even the current state of AI, as useful as it is, there's a lot of work to do the enterprises to continue to adopt it. They have to get used to the security and compliance, which at Box we're very, we spend a lot of time making sure that everything is safe and secure for AI. But companies need to make sure that's true, and they need to evaluate all their vendors to make sure that's true, and then they need to use it, and incorporate it, and change management into their way that they do things, and figure out where it's good at. And so some companies are well down that path, other ones haven't started. But even if the AI model stopped getting better right now, I think we have years of it helping enterprises become more productive and just better at providing services to their clients. But I also believe that AI is going to continue to get better. So we have these like different like curves of like AI is getting better. People are getting used to the AI, and they're going to take advantage of new capabilities and so on. And so I see that like we're kind of going to be in this world of accelerating benefits related to AI that started a couple of years ago, but will continue for many years to come.
So how do you, I guess, as Box, you've long promoted this like security capabilities. You were just mentioning security in the content management arena. How do you sustain that emphasis with generative AI, especially because security, data management is one of the things that a lot of enterprises are concerned with when it comes to generative AI?
Absolutely. So a couple things. So one of the things we did, we laid out in the very beginning this idea of our AI principles, and one of the most important sort of ideas behind these principles is that our customer data is their data. We at Box, we are entrusted to make sure that they can use their data in many different ways, but it's theirs. And if you're using AI on their data, then in the same way, anything that you do with your data, it must be secure, it must be safe, it must be compliant, and you need to be able to guarantee that, be responsible for it. And at Box is very important to us. If our customers can't trust that we are appropriately securing their data to all of the latest standards in the industry, then then it's at the very heart of our value proposition to them. And so for AI, we take it very seriously. We apply, like, one of the very critical things is you should never ever do AI on something like on your data if you don't expect the person has access to it. And it's like this like weirdly like fundamental question. You're like, obviously, like, I shouldn't be able to get a summary of a document that I'm not allowed to have. But like, if you're not, it's actually kind of complex to build this into a system. And so like some vendors out there, they will offer you the ability to do AI on stuff, but not have a permission system built in. So like, to the point, like, let's say that we have we're working together on some confidential thing. And so if I share with you a document, I would expect that you can use AI on that because you now have the privileges for it. And if I remove you, I'm like, oh no, I don't want you to have access anymore. You shouldn't be able to do AI on it. And that almost that simple concept, it needs to be built in from the very beginning. And so we did that. And so this is part of our ongoing obligations to our customers, is to let them use AI in a safe and secure way. Not only the infrastructure side, making sure the models are isolated, making sure that there's no logs that are left around that like have their data, but also just the idea that if they're using AI on data, it's considered very the most secure type way to do AI, and that they're not going to have to worry that it itself becomes into a data leakage event. And so therefore we like have no end of guarantees and other things we're happy to talk to our customers through about why we believe that we are the most secure in how we treat AI in the enterprise. But the heart of it all is the idea that people should be able to do AI on their data only for their purposes, not and then they shouldn't worry that somebody's going to train on their data or steal their data or anything like that. Like that's absolutely not enterprise grade from our view. And then that's what we build in from the very beginning to make sure that that's not allowed and not even possible. And so people can trust the AI.
I think that's very interesting. I also wonder though, like, for your, not only for your customer internally, like how do you manage the security aspect, right? In terms of like your employees. I know that at the very beginning of generative AI, there was this like, we don't want employees using ChatGPT, and then this last year's into this year was like a lot of people are using it anyway, so let's just have them use it. So how do you guys mitigate that risk internally?
The interesting thing in AI is that like it brings up the same topic that many people have dealt with for a long time, which is whenever you give your critical data to somebody, you should be very aware of what they're going to do with it. And so and ChatGPT is no exception, or any of these different vendors. And so I respect that one thing that ChatGPT does is that they have a little toggle that tells you, do you allow me to learn based on your data and train? It's like one of the options. It's you can read the legalese on it, but it's basically like, can I get better if you give me thoughts on the whole thing? And to me, like they're very upfront with it. Their terms are very clear, and so then you should take that into account when using it. So to the point, if you don't uncheck that, and with any of these vendors, not just like OpenAI, like the terms will tell you like what they're allowed to do with it. So the worst case scenario is that you go in and you're like, I have something very confidential, like. For example, I have a spreadsheet of all of my employee info and their social security numbers. And the moment you paste that or upload it to any vendor, AI or not, you should be very worried about what happens next. And so that kind of thing is that the like for most enterprises, that's not allowed to just give confidential data off to these other sources. And so at Box, when you give us your data, we're extremely clear on the terms, and we are extremely clear on how we protect and treat all this data, so that customers who care about this, they go through and they look through it all, and they're like, okay, you're treating this in a secure way, in an enterprise grade way that you're able to then say is they approve of, and then we have compliance certifications and audits to kind of prove this. And then we then take those ideas and we apply them to AI also, so that then now companies know that their AI approach can be secure. And anybody we work with in terms of our sub-processors, they also have to agree to all these strict terms. So the idea of this is a little bit less of like AI is itself a security issue, but more about the idea that if you're giving any data to any vendor, then it's a challenge to make sure that it has the rules that you want. And AI just so happens to be something that people are now re-exploring giving data to AI. So So for me, what's one of the big benefits of Box is that we let you do AI safely and securely on your data. And we offer this service, including all of these guarantees about so that customers can understand and believe it all.
To hear the full audio podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, TuneIn, Podbean, and other popular podcast platforms.